Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session. We're going to be covering the RAG Instruct benchmark test. This is a new test data set that we published a couple of weeks ago. It is publicly available, and we've started rolling it out in some of the evaluation of the models that we've created. The purpose of this video is just very quickly to walk you through what is this test, what was it designed for, and then how do you actually get it. The real key question that we want to keep in mind in going through this is a question that we get all the time from customers, partners, business users, is how do we evaluate whether a model is fit for purpose? There's so much excitement about LLMs, but there's also a lot of ideation going on to say, could it fit for this use case? Could it work for that use case? And a lot of questions about how do you evaluate in a particular situation whether a model actually can serve the needs of a particular business use case. Now, when it comes to LLM evaluation benchmarks, there is no shortage of work that's progressed in the scientific community, the academic and research community, in open source. These are a few of the really notable benchmarks. A lot of these have been created by the Eleuther group. They've been promoted by Hugging Face and are used in objective evaluation of the speeds and feeds of particular models. You can find leadership boards that show the ranking of a variety of different models, model sizes across each of these individual tests. And when you really think about these tests, a lot of them were designed by academics and researchers and scientists and people with PhDs who want to have the most objective framework to look in micro granularity to compare across a wide range of model architectures, technologies, and sizes to be able to compare how different models are performing. The question we really wanted to address was this gentleman on the right, the business user, who has an idea. Maybe it's a wild and crazy idea. Perhaps it's really thinking about how to apply a specific model or a specific technology to a use case, a real business problem that they have, and asking, is this going to work? Is it going to drive productivity? Is it going to help me to solve my problem? It's a different perspective than the research scientist. And this was really what was motivating us as we were thinking about creating this benchmark. The questions that we hear very commonly are, will a particular model work for a particular use case? It's wonderful to see its relative ranking against the MLU score. It's great to see that it performs very well for its size, but bottom line, is it going to work for the use case that I have? And for my specific use case, what kind of accuracy should be expected? It doesn't have to be 100%. Maybe it doesn't even have to be 95%, but we have to have some predictability to understand how accurate will the model be? And just as importantly, where are errors most likely to occur? Because if we know how accurate it's going to be and we know where errors are likely to occur, then we can build compensatory systems around this in pre-processing, in post-processing, with some predictability then to understand how we can actually start to deploy this model and this specific RAG workflow into production. So these were the questions that we really had in mind as we designed our benchmark. And let's dive in. So I actually want to show the benchmark, show where it is, and start to show people how to use it. So I've just flipped over. This is on Hugging Face. This is in the LLMWare dataset repository. This is the benchmark test. It's the RAG Instruct benchmark tester. It was posted maybe about a month ago. You can see in this, just so everybody can see, if you haven't gone to this before, you can go to Files and Versions. You can pull down and download the test. It is a JSON-L file. But what we're going to show you here is actually what's in the specific benchmark test. First, let's look at just some representative questions. We've picked a set business context and domains that are fairly representative of the questions that we get from business users. General business content, financial content, earnings releases, stock market information, legal contracts, regulatory information, general business and news texts. And the kinds of questions are everything from payment terms or specific, who would own the intellectual property in a contract, detailed financial questions, what happened in a particular quarter, what was the increase compared to a previous period, comparison questions, threshold questions, but this gives you a very representative view of the kinds of questions that are in the benchmark test. And then the benchmark test, which consists of 200 questions, is broken up into several segments. The first 100 questions we use as a core Q&A evaluation. All of these 100 questions are fact-based questions, and for each of these fact-based questions, the answer can be found in the context passage that's provided with the question. We use those 100 samples to assign to each model 0 to 100 score based on the accuracy against those 100 questions. The second 100 questions then are broken down into 5 specific subsegments that test different skills. The first is not found classification, which we actually find to be the single most important training to provide for RAG systems. In each of these 20 questions, there's a question, the question cannot be answered in the associated context passage. It's a test whether the model can identify and correctly say, not found or something equivalent to that, or whether the model attempts to use the passage to answer the question in a way that it shouldn't. Many leading models, in fact, Google Bard, we found, is notoriously bad at this type of capability. OpenAI and Anthropic have been trained to do this. They're very, very good at not found classification, but it's one of the things that most open source based models require additional fine tuning to start to get better sensitivity around identifying a not found classification. So we see this as a very important key skill that we wanted to be able to test individually for any individual model. Second key segment are Boolean questions, yes, no, sometimes involving thresholds, sometimes involving a little bit of math, but yes, no questions can be extremely important in RAG to do automated classification and a lot of automated question answerings to be able to identify, is this a yes or a no? Again, it's a unique skill. Some models are very good at it out of the box. Some actually are not and really require a lot of fine tuning to improve in Boolean classification. Third is around basic math. These are 20 samples. We are not talking about advanced calculus here, but these are just basic common sense increments, decrements. If something is X and 5 more happens, what is the answer? If today is the 15th, what is the date 3 days from now? Basic percentages, multiplications, ranking, sorting, some basic common sense logic. Again, it's important to call this out. Most smaller models are not great at math, but it's important, I think, to get a sense of how good or how bad is it on a continuum. The fourth major chunk are complex Q&A, and we have several little sub-skills within this. We look at multiple choice, financial table reading, a multi-part extraction in which we're looking to aggregate across a passage and identify individual elements across a broader chunk of text. Some causal inferences like, why, how effective is the model at understanding and answering why questions, and then some basic logical selections. And then finally, the last 20 questions are summaries. Now, what we've tried to do in the course of doing this is to give you a pretty broad-based sampler so that for any individual use case, the 0 to 100 gives you a good overall score of the basic accuracy that you should expect in asking fact-based questions. These next 5 then start to give you, depending upon the specific use case, how applicable and how strong is the model going to be and what are going to be some of the strengths and weaknesses. Now, what we've done for each of these is we've actually gone out and we've scored our own models. We haven't gone out and scored other models. We're not looking for this to become a broad-based competition or yet another benchmark. We thought actually in the spirit of just transparency, accuracy, and giving people some confidence about what they should expect from each of these models, this becomes a pretty good objective way to do that. And just giving some common sense. What you can see here then is you look at each of the individual models in the Dragon series and the Bling series. You can see the benchmark and how it performed. The E model, as you can see, performed very, very well. We applied a qualitative ranking between 1 and 5 on the complex questions and the summarization quality. And then in each model, we actually provided the answer sheet, so you can go and actually review those results, or you can actually go generate them yourself. So the generation script that we provide out of the box is both a way to start using the model, but it also goes and it runs that benchmark for you, so you can go test it for your own particular use case. Now, again, the idea behind all of this is not to provide some superior benchmark that's the greatest, most scientific evaluation. We thought it was a really good way to help that business user who's trying to answer some of these basic questions and start to get some confidence that a particular model is going to be effective for a particular use case, or similarly to understand what are some of the strengths and what are some of the gaps, what are some of the things they should be thinking about in the way that they're packaging up their context passages in building a RAG workflow, as well as how they're actually framing individual questions and what kind of accuracy they should expect. I hope that this was a helpful quick guide. We've shown you where all of it is available in the Hugging Face repository, where you can pull down the data set as well as the scripts so that you could start running it against the Dragon and Bling models or against any model that you would like. If you have any questions about it, please send them our way. We hope that you've enjoyed today's session. Thank you and have a wonderful day.